mobility. I really hope you guys enjoy this section. We've got a lot of different tools, a lot of different options for you to pursue and continue your mobility journey here. Here are a few tips for you as you continue or begin that journey. First and foremost, I want all of you to understand there is no one right way, right? The one thing I would recommend is test and retest. And if whatever it is you're doing is making progress, continue, right? If you're doing a certain mobility drill, whether it's a stretch, a foam roll, myofascial release, whether it's dynamic, whatever it might be, a loaded stretch, and week to week you're not making any progress in that area of mobility, move on and try something else, right? So there's no one right way. That's step one. Another thing I want to remind you guys all of, or have you keep in mind, be patient, okay? Some types of mobility, some areas might be really lagging and take time for you, and the progress won't always be linear. Sometimes you'll feel like a couple weeks go by and you don't progress, and then suddenly you break through. And then other times you'll find areas where progress is quite rapid. So be patient, don't force it if it's not there. Another thing I would recommend is a lot of people view mobility as sort of a throwaway, something to be done on a Thursday or a Sunday, on a recovery day. I would encourage you guys to view it as training just as much as you would a lift, okay? And oftentimes people report finding PRing lifts just from increasing their mobility, right? So keep that in mind, view it as a training tool, not just a recovery or a rest day type activity. And then last but not least, which kind of segues with that, is where to place your mobility in your training, right? And I'd say ideally correlate it with the day in the muscle group or the activity or the movement you're doing. So say it's squatting that day, we would work on hip mobility, ankle mobility, that kind of thing, right? And then where in the workout would you place it? Honestly, anywhere you'll get it done, but here's some ways to optimize where you might place it. Let's say your ankle mobility is really bad. Well, pre-squat in your warm-up would be the best place to place that to improve your squat mechanics going in, and then also training that new range of motion that you opened up right after you opened it up. So a great way to reinforce that new mobility that you've just earned. On the other hand, let's say you already have pretty good mobility, more than enough to get your activity done, your squat. You might want to save some of that effort and time before the squat so you can hammer the squat and then do it at the end in your cool down. It could be a really great place for it there, okay? One thing I would say to consider that the new people with stretching, particular stretching and mobility sometimes miss is they'll do it every day and too much. And certain stretches that are more aggressive, let's say more of like say a deep hamstring stretch. Let's say you did deadlifts and then the next day you're sore from deadlifts and you go and you do this deep hamstring stretch. Not ideal. So that's where we'll want to group them. Like I said, view it as training, not a rest activity per se. Okay? And then particular to our category of movements in this on-demand library, you guys are going to see two other quick tips. You're going to see a lot of combining of dynamic movements, stretches or loaded stretches with static. I really like that format, and I want to have you guys view it as they're both informing and helping each other, right? That dynamic move, let's say for example, I'm doing a glute airplane, right? Combined with an elevated pigeon, okay? For a visual there. So I'm using that dynamic movement to bring some awareness, bring some blood flow into that area, and then I'll go into the static stretch of the elevated pigeon, hitting that same area with now a little better mind-muscle connection, a little bit better blood flow. And now when I go back again to my glute airplane, I've opened up some new range from that static stretch. And so they both kind of help each other out and inform each other. So that's the idea there. Keep that in mind when you're doing those. And then one other one I'll just highlight is in a lot of the static stretches, you'll see contract and relax protocols. Ultimately, when we're static stretching, we want to spend a longer duration of time in that static stretch, and that can be hard to do and sometimes really boring. That contract and relax not only opens up new ranges and brings more awareness, but it also helps pass the time and break it up. So I encourage you guys really dive into this mobility, and if you haven't spent much time on it in the past, you might be shocked at how much better your body feels and how much easier your PRs come by.